In today's video, I review every episode of Medabots, starting with Series 1. Hi guys, I'm General Chaos, and holy shit, I have just hit 25,000 channel views on Bitchute. I just want to take this moment to very quickly say I am very grateful for each and every one of you for checking out my videos on Bitchute. Thank you all so very much. And here's to 50,000 channel views. Now, this is the really weird thing when talking about Medabots. Some people, or some sources even, will state that there are 3 seasons or series of Medabots. However, the final series, or Series 3, is usually called Medabots Spirits, as some people tend to treat that as a spin-off of the original Medabots. So, in order to avoid any confusion, I'm just going to refer to each series of episodes as the Medaforce Saga, which is the first 26 episodes, the Medabots World Tournament Saga as Series 2, and the Killerbots Saga as Series 3 or Medabots Spirits. So whenever you hear me say the Killerbots Saga, the Medabot World Tournament Saga, or the Medaforce Saga, you guys will hopefully understand where I'm coming from. So, with the introduction out of the way, let's get started. Episode 1, Stung by a Medabee. So this episode is actually a really nice way to start the Medabots anime. There's 1 or 2 really weird moments where the character's dialogue doesn't quite match up with the lip movements. It's actually really weird because it's kind of a recurring thing in the series. There's also this running theme with characters being obsessed with the idea of Icky not having a Medabot for reasons, just because everybody at his school has one. There's one really weird moment when Spike looks like he's been slapped across the face, but the slap seems to have occurred off screen or was cut. And it was only until I decided to watch some of the episodes that had aired in Japan did I realise that there was a scene where Spike actually does get the shit kicked out of him by Samantha. It was just edited out for the English dub, because I think they felt it was too violent. Also, how come Medabee didn't start up straight away when Icky finally got his medal and finally got round to building Medabee up? All in all, I have to say, the animation of Medabots is honestly, in my opinion, really good. Well, sometimes it can be good, other times it can be really good. It's, I'm guessing it just depends on how the animators were feeling on the day when they were making the episode. I apologise if that sounds really mean, but it's always something that I've noticed. There's also a really funny moment where Icky and Medabee go up against these mysterious punk rocker Medafighters, and one of them calls Icky a spazoid. Something is really funny. I'm actually kind of surprised that they were allowed to get away with that. To be honest with you, I think this episode actually aired all the way back in the year 2000, so I'm surprised even then they were allowed to have a character call another character a spazoid. Overall, this episode gets an 8.5 out of 10. Episode 2, Return of the Screws. So after a pretty funny scene with Icky dreaming that him and Medabee are now champions of row battling, Icky's mum tries to wake Icky up by sneaking into Icky's bed. I don't know whether to say if that's really funny or really creepy, but whatever. Apparently the kids that attend school can't bring Medabots to school, which always really confused me because it's like, how do they keep getting away with having row battles in the school grounds? I love the animation on Icky in this episode, especially with Icky doing a Chad stride into the boys' locker room when he gets a secret letter. I love the principal from Icky's school as well, how he always wants to row battle people, but they always keep turning him down. There's a bit of an awkward scene with Medaby finding a watermelon in the street, and it's really weird because the voice actor for Medaby is black, and Medaby starts going crazy over a watermelon that was planted by Henry because apparently Medaby is a beetle type Medabot and beetles like watermelon. I mean, I say weird, but then again, the voice actor was completely fine with this, as far as I know. I don't know, I haven't seen any interviews either, but whatever. What's also really weird is this plot point with Medaby liking watermelons because he's a beetle-type Medabot never comes up again for the rest of the series, so it's like, okay. Later on, the Screws reveal that they had a boss of their own who uses a Medabot called the Banisher that has a specialty which hilariously is strong appearance. Which really funny because Banisher only goes down with one shot from Medaby, which is just hilarious. Overall, this episode gets an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Episode 3, Running Scared. This episode is a brilliant introduction to the character Coach Mountain, who was already one of my favourite characters the first time I saw this episode years ago, and he still is. The alleged stories about Coach Mountain are really funny too. I also like how when Coach Mountain gets a Medabot, he has the Medabot hitting the side of the school causing cracks in the wall. Also, Icky and the gang potentially meet a hooker when they try to follow Coach Mountain into the city. It's really hilarious. They also meet a guy that gives them a riddle as well in the form of a maths question involving multiple trains approaching a train station at different times, and everybody ends up becoming mentally insane because of it. They also meet some drunk guys as well. I mean, for the sake of the English dub, they try to imply that they're not drunk, but come on, it's so obvious that they're drunk. They ask Icky and the gang if they want to do some karaoke with them in another bar, and that's also really funny too. I think it's weird how Mr. Referee only seemed to appear whenever Medaby took over from Digmole's row battle with the gangsters, and he wasn't there for the original row battle where Digmole went up against the gangsters. That was a little bit weird, but overall, this episode is still pretty damn good, and it gets a perfect 10 from me. Oh, and before I move on to the next episode, that scene with Icky questioning Coach Mountain whether Icky, instead of doing laps around the school, should just study harder at home, which causes Coach Mountain to run really fast towards Icky. What's really funny is he nearly trips up as he does so, and he really gets up in Icky's face, proper screaming at him, the only reason you failed that test today was because you didn't have enough blood running through your skull. It's just absolutely funny, it really is. It makes me smile every time. The only reason I'm not using clips from the cartoon, not just because of copyright issues, but it's because even though I'm reviewing all these episodes back to back, I want people to check the episodes out for themselves as well. If you feel like I got anything wrong, don't be afraid to tell me in the comments. All I ask is that you're calm about it. Come on, be cool, guys. End of the day, it's a cartoon. Episode 4, The Legendary Medafighter. So the first 20 seconds of this episode are hilarious. Icky getting pushed out of the way of a moving car by Karen, who ends up slamming him into a wall so hard he makes a hole in the wall, and the car turns out to just be a go-kart driven by some kid. Icky and Erica managed to dress Medabots up to make him look like one of the students from the rich school that they tried to sneak into to find a legendary fighter. And what's really funny is the guards not only not notice, but the screws also try to break in as well, and they come up with really funny ideas like trying to dig into the school through a massive tunnel. There's this really weird scene with Icky and the gang where they end up meeting a new character called Eddie who had been trapped in a net. And what's really weird is, as soon as he states that he's been looking for the legendary Meda fighter for 2 years, there's a couple of frames where Icky looks like he's trying to say something, but he doesn't actually say anything. It's really awkward. Then there's a scene shortly afterwards where Icky helps Karen after she gets a thorn from a rose, and Koji squares up to Icky saying he had to grow up with her through those awkward years. I mean, I kind of knew what he meant, implying that, I don't know, maybe Karen didn't grow up with any parents or anything, but I don't know. I just think when you make comments like that, they can be very easily misinterpreted. I don't know. Also, during the row battle, Icky says he's never fought anyone like Koji, but isn't this like Icky's 4th row battle? Also, I like how Icky surprised Karen has a Medabot, despite nearly everyone in this anime having a Medabot. Like, really? And then the kicker, which is how the episode ends, with apparently Karen's never lost a row battle because nobody has ever challenged Karen to a row battle because she's so nice and kind and gentle. Just kiss my ass. Seriously. But anyway, this episode gets an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Episode 5. The Old Man and the Sea Monster. This episode starts off with, in my opinion, a really stupid and also nonsensical pun from Medabots. So Icky's dad states, well, time to catch some rays, despite lying under a beach umbrella. And Medabots asks, who's Ray? Yeah. There is, however, a funny joke with Erica asking Icky, why does he check under his bed for monsters every night? When they ask about the sea monster in a cafe, and Medabots states that he's seen Icky look under his bed as well. I like the dialogue exchange between Medabots and the old man with the guitar. Honestly, I didn't like the row battle with Medabots against the shark-type Medabots. Apparently, Medabots loses because he apparently forfeited, just because he got into a boat and became dizzy fairly quickly. Okay. But there's also a really weird pun where, not weird, but just, in my opinion, really dumb, where Medabots asks where he's going to learn how to swim, and Icky replies going to a school of fish. I also find it really ironic when Medabots gets spare parts from the old man from before and comments saying that they look really old, despite Medabots being an old Medabot himself. Characters have even described Medabots as an antique Medabot. But it's followed up with a fairly funny line from Medabots where he asks if the sea-type Medaparts came in yellow. I like how Icky states during the row battle rematch with Medabots and the shark-type Medabot from before, that Medabots can walk on the water but still can't swim with the spare tentacle legs that he gets from the old man, and the old man simply states, sorry, that's tomorrow's lesson. For some reason, not only did they reuse the dude I rock line from the previous episode that Medabots says after he wins a row battle. They also reuse that same "Dude, I rock" line throughout the rest of the series for like no reason at all. It's the same tone of voice. It just, yeah, we get it. Medabots is headstrong, but I just don't think repeating that same line over and over again was really all that necessary. Also, how long has Icky's dad been sunbathing for? And how did his entire body get sunburnt when he's been mostly lying under an umbrella? And if he's been there the entire time, did he ever go home and come back with Icky and Erica? If not, then how is it that he has yet to wake up for food and water? It's really confusing because I swear this episode takes place over 2 days. So Icky's dad either just completely didn't realise that he was sunburnt the entire time and he just took the sun rays like a boss, or Icky, Erica and Icky's mum, assuming she was even there at all, just completely left Icky's dad at the beach like they just forgot about him. Like, what the hell? Overall, this episode gets a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Episode 6, The Gimme Ghost. I love how nobody knows who the Phantom Renegade is yet. If you've been paying close attention to this series, and I know you will, it's so obviously clear that it's Henry the shopkeeper, because of course you needed me to point that out, but anyway. So Icky, Erica, Karen, Koji, Henry, Medabots, Brass and Neutronurse go off looking for the Gimme Ghost. Neutronurse says she won't let Karen go off on her own, which prompts Erica to tell Brass she'll be a great reporter like her. Brass looks like she's going to say something to Erica, but then it just immediately cuts to a massive zoom out shot of the gang in the deserted part of a city. They get separated from Koji and hear him scream, to which Karen replies with, "Koji hasn't screamed like that since he found out his watch was fake." And just wow. The Rubber Robos finally return since their 2-minute introduction in the first episode. So what was Medabots doing the entire time in that forest? Seriously, Icky just calls Medabots forward when Icky and the gang find out that it was the Rubber Robos who had been plotting another scheme to steal as many Medabot medals as they could so that they could find the rare medal in order to bring chaos to the world. Was Medabots seriously just waiting in the bushes patiently until Icky called his name? It's not really a criticism towards the cartoon. If anything, it's actually more funny. If anything. The Phantom Renegade and Henry are both really funny in this episode, and the Rubber Robos always bring a smile to my face. Like, in my opinion, they are the best minions like ever created. Like, they're just so brilliant. Overall, this episode gets another 10 out of 10 from me. Episode 7, Cyan Dog Bites Back. God damn, I love this episode. Seriously, this episode is, in my opinion, the best episode of Medabots I think I've ever seen in my life. From the opening scenes with the screws, with the animation and the dialogue exchanges from Spike, Salone and Samantha, to the ending scenes with Medabots fighting against Spike and Spike not giving Icky's Medapart back, especially for the Spike and Icky row battle. Just brilliant from start to finish. So Spike ends up getting kicked out from the screws because he's losing more row battles than he's actually winning. Apparently, dogs and monkeys are bitter rivals because dogs were the first animals to go into space. This is part of a conversation between Erica and Icky when Erica notices Icky and Medaby are both quarrelling with each other in the park. And apparently Spike can't challenge little kids to a row battle because they're little kids. Despite he's part of the Screws, and the anime keeps making the Screws out to be almost like bullies, or at the very least local hooligans. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but whatever. I love how the little kids that you see throughout this episode are constantly referred to as the ankle biters. It's just fucking hilarious. I love the scene with Samantha confronting Erica, and it's honestly, it makes me laugh every single time when she does that big forward step. And Samantha just has Erica by the scruff of her neck. It's just so brilliant. I love how this anime has its own variation of the Eye of the Tiger music number as well, because you hear that when Medaby offers to help Cyan Dog train for the row battle that they're going to have towards the end of the episode, and also to train up so that Spike can have a rematch against the ankle biters. I love how the guy with the chicks comes back to give Spike advice, and it's really funny because it turns out it's actually Samantha, and Spike can actually tell it's Samantha. And the scene just ends with Samantha stating, "Wow, he could tell it was me. I even disguised my voice and everything." Overall, this episode gets a 10 out of 10 from me. If I could score this episode any higher, I seriously would. Episode 8, For Better or Worse, Part 1. The episode starts off with a pretty cool intro to Icky's programme, and it follows on with a really funny gag with Medaby pretending to be an American Western sheriff as he uses Salty, who's Icky's dog, as a horse. It leads on to a couple of funny moments with Medaby shooting the remote, causing the TV to change channels to a Western film, which then leads to a scene with Medaby somehow causing a vase of flowers to come down on the TV. I know there was a joke because it then leads to Icky's mum trying to guilt herself, which was supposed to lead to Icky taking responsibility for the vase toppling over, where she says, "Oh no, what was I thinking putting that vase on top of the TV? Maybe it was all my fault," and she pretends to cry, but it's okay, that's the joke you were going for in order to round your son, even though you knew it was him that caused the vase to topple onto the TV anyway. But it's the TV's still damaged. Why would you put the vase on there anyway? It's really weird because it's a funny scene, but at the same time it's also really weird as well, I think, at least. So Icky finds out that there's a city row battling tournament, and so he plans to enter. And he also learns that the Screws have entered the City Row Battle tournament as well, with Samantha announcing that she's given Peppercat a new powerful part. We know this because Spike hilariously blurts it out when it was implied that he wasn't actually supposed to let on to this. So Icky and Medaby fall out, and just after they fall out, we get to the City Row Battle tournament, and Koji wins a round just for Karen, but she was busy talking to Icky, so Koji starts crying hilariously. Seriously, it gets me every time because I always think he's going to get angry and shit, but he just starts crying and tears pouring out of his eyes like he's some sort of tap. It's really funny anime shit. Henry is also pretty funny in this episode as well. As he tries to sneak away, he gets caught by his boss and then tries to lie, saying he was just about to go on a delivery and deliver some noodles to someone. But the scene ends with his boss turning around asking, "But Henry, we don't do deliveries, do we?" I swear they also used the same animation of Similodon running around rockets like they did in another scene from the legendary Medafighter episode from before. I mean, I know with it being a cartoon, it would have been really hard to animate and everything, but it's just something that I'm pointing out because I just noticed it. And I'm not saying this episode is the only episode in this known reality that's guilty of reusing scenes. You know, a lot of cartoons do that to kind of like save time in animating. I am aware of that. I like how Medaby and Icky have this moment together where they try to make up, only for it to be ruined by Spike, who comes in saying that he was going to try and bargain with Icky over a bet that the Screws had placed on who would be the tournament champion. And it causes Medaby to fly off the handle with Icky. I also love how this episode also makes me think that the Rubber Robos were up to something, but it turns out they were just cooks for a reserved booth where they were selling rubber noodles to people. Yum yum. This episode gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Episode 9, For Better or Worse, Part 2. I love the scene with Koji at the start of this episode berating Icky on how disgraceful Koji thought the row battle was, only to be interrupted by Mr. Referee, who comes in and asks Koji if he wants the trophy anyway, after Koji stated that the victory means nothing to him, despite winning. I'm actually kind of confused as to how Medaby's defeat was all Icky's fault. Icky was trying to help Medaby despite having a fallout with him. If anything, it was Medaby that was at fault, seeing as how he wouldn't listen to Icky. So Samantha notices Icky can't find Medaby's medal, but her mouth doesn't move as she says we're going on a treasure hunt when Samantha, Sloane and Spike are all hiding behind a tree. I like the moments with Icky reflecting on the whole dilemma as he cleans Medaby's parts. I also like how Medaby joins the Rubber Robos when he's promised of becoming a shift supervisor with the possibility of becoming night manager. Icky runs into the chick salesman again, who's now trying to compete with a pet shop, funnily enough. I love how not only is Icky's mum okay with Icky skipping school to find Medaby, but the headmaster of Icky's school is too, because he's hip with the kids. Also, there's a scene where Icky finally does find Medaby in the Rubber Robo gang's hideout, and Sea Slug from the Rubber Robos tells Medaby to eliminate Icky, Karen and Erica. Did he say eliminate as in kill? Because if so, that is so fucking badass. I mean, the Rubber Robos are always portrayed as a joke in the Medabots anime, but in a good way. And seeing them in this whole new, almost violent and psychopathic, sinister, devious, despicable, evil light is just really funny too, because it's like the show knows how to make them serious when the plot needs them to be, but there's also that perfect blend of making them really comedic as well, which is why I really, really love the Rubber Robos in the Medabots anime. I also like how Medaby won the Row Battle rematch against Similodon. It was a really creative strategy. This episode gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Episode 10, Mystery Medabot. So the episode starts off with a news report about a storm hitting the general area where Icky and company live. And there's a dog being swept away by a strong current in a riverside. But thankfully for the dog, a mysterious Medabot, who we later on find out is called Rakusho, manages to save the dog from drowning. Medaby goes from being in total awe at Rakusho, claiming he's a really cool Medabot, but as soon as Rakusho sets the dog back down on dry land, Medaby just starts calling Rakusho a show-off. The whole thing is just really funny, how Medabots can become so hetty and almost childlike with scenarios like this. Erica questions the idea of a Medabot without a Medafighter, yet Medabots was winning nearly all of his row battles in the city tournament just 2 episodes ago without Icky there to support him. And what was Icky, Erica, Medabots, the little girl and her dog even doing out in the violent rainstorm anyway? It's never explained why. Later on in this episode, the Rubber-Robos decide to pose as builders or house repair guys in another attempt to steal rare medals for world domination. Icky and Erica go back over some recordings that Erica had caught of Rakusha saving the drowning dog. Erica asks where did the Medabot come from, and Medabots just simply states junkyard. Oh, Medabots. We go back to the Rubber-Robos, who are now holding a plate of brownies and a bottle of soda, even though it's obviously champagne or, I don't know, white wine or something. I think it's anything other than some fizzy soft beverage, judging from the bottle. Squid Guts says Santa liking milk and cookies. Well, the home renovation god loves cod liver oil and meatloaf. Is that what that stuff actually is, despite the bottle clearly being labelled as soda? The Rubber-Robo minions coming in to build the house after their god Foxuna destroys it is quite funny. So before we get to meet the Screws again, there's a panning shot showing people walking down certain streets, but they're barely moving. Some of them, I swear, were just standing still. So there's a scene where the Screws discussing who's been going around making wacky renovations to people's houses. Then they discover their own houses have been altered, causing Sloane to make some really bad puns. Like, oh, I can't eat a ukulele, it would be too stringy. Ha ha. Okay, so there is a goof I noticed. Medabots passes a sign saying no trespassers when he notices Rakusha sat by himself in some sort of yard. But when Icky and Erica come running to find Medabots after Rakusha leaves the area, the sign now has kanji on it. Just really weird. I'm actually really surprised that the people doing the English dub for this anime didn't pick up on that. So the Rubber-Robos lose to Medabots in a row battle, and they run away in disgrace. Hilariously enough, the wacky renovations that the Rubber-Robos made to everyone's houses in the city actually cross over into future episodes. I'm pretty sure Samantha's house basically stayed the same way as that big red-nosed demon thing, whatever the hell it was supposed to be. But yeah, that's actually really funny. This episode gets a 7 out of 10 overall. Episode 11, Phantom Renegade Unmasked. So after breaking into the Medabot Museum, the Phantom Renegade challenges all of the guards to a game of tag. Also, when he manages to run into Seamus, who's a Scottish reporter that tries to expose the Phantom Renegade, he tells Seamus that it's illegal to expose yourself in public. Throughout this entire episode, I found myself asking the same question over and over and over again. Why, oh why, would Seamus think Icky is the Phantom Renegade? Hell, why would anybody in this anime think that Icky is the Phantom Renegade? Seamus actually gets a picture of the Phantom Renegade, and he actually got to meet the Phantom Renegade in person, and the Phantom Renegade is clearly 2 times at least the height of Icky for starters. The chameleon Medabot that Seamus owns makes a crack at Seamus because he still lives with his parents and he lives in his parents' basement. When I was watching this back to review, for this video, I was like, yeah, that was funny 20 years ago. Oh wait, it was never funny. Nor was that joke ever original, witty, or insightful. Seriously. And this isn't just a gripe that I have with TV and films. This is a gripe I have with society as a whole. Why do people insist on stating that just because you live with your parents still, they immediately assume that you're within the confines of your parents' basement or attic within the house? Like, what kind of a parent would do that to their offspring? Like, are you for real? Do people seriously just forget how hard it is to accumulate enough money, even to rent a flat? Like, seriously, buying a house is not, like, really easy. It just isn't, you know. You've got to take other things into account, like home insurance. Is the house in good condition? Is it in a good location? You don't just wake up one morning, say to yourself, I'm going to buy a house, and then towards the evening you're within a new house. That's not how it works. These things take time, and it's something that people cannot necessarily afford to do straight away, especially in this economy. I apologise for going off on a bit of a rant there, but it's something that's been personally bothering me, because it's not even a funny joke to me at all. You know, it's not even funny, it's not even original. It's a joke that I think needs to die. It should have never come into existence. It's a joke that I think seriously needs to just die now. One really weird thing I noticed about this episode is Erika talks about how the tabloid newspaper company that Seamus works for prints out nothing but garbage. Did this anime just predict the fake news problem that we had all the way back in 2016? It can't have done. It just can't have done. Or at the very least, did this anime predict Donald Trump's, like, catchphrase, whatever you want to call that? I don't know. The episode also sees Seamus trying to spy on Icky and Erica from the school gates, because Seamus still thinks that Icky is the Phantom Renegade. Yeah, that's totally not creepy at all. He also follows them from a dustbin whilst he's holding his camera as well. Like, I'm pretty certain that this anime came out around the year 2000, at least the English dub did. I still can't get over that. This was seriously acceptable for the year 2000 standards. Like, this. Yeah, anyway, let's just move on. So the chameleon Medabot sneaks into Icky's room to take pictures, and Icky dreams that he's in a row battle, and he tells Medaby to use his laser cannons. It's a really odd scene, because it also implies that Medaby just so happens to be in the same dream that Icky's in. Or what was going on there? The scene ends hilariously, though, with Medaby shooting the chameleon Medabot, causing him to say, "I had that coming," which was pretty funny. So Seamus decides to dress up as the Phantom Renegade in order to obtain a news story, and it's really funny seeing Erika and Henry react to the whole situation. Just this big, fat Scottish man running around pretending to be the Phantom Renegade. Also, Seamus comedically sandwiches himself into a very narrow alleyway, which is really funny. The Phantom Renegade suggesting to himself that he should consider wearing a helmet after hitting his head on a tree is pretty funny. It's in this scene where shortly after Icky and Medabots win their row battle against Seamus and Multicolour. Yay, I finally remembered the chameleon Medabot's name. Hooray for me. But yeah, I can just imagine you all reacting that same way as well. But anyway, this episode gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Episode 12, Ban All Medabots. Okay, so one of the very first shots of this cartoon has 3 women talking to each other. It's about 6 seconds into the episode, you can't really miss it. Personally, I just think it's really bad. Not only do the mouths not move when they talk, but there's barely any animation for the women. So a middle-aged woman comes along and tries to ban Medabots altogether at Icky's school. I mean, I can kind of see why she tried to have them all banned. I mean, it's heavily implied throughout the entire anime that Medabots can't just hurt each other. The weapons are also a major threat to their Medafighters as well, particularly with Medabots and the amount of times he's tried to shoot Icky. There's a joke where Icky's mum compares Medabots to pets, so that's why Icky should be allowed to take Medabots to school. But then she states, "Where has Salty been all week?" Just right out of nowhere, she just asks where Salty the dog has been. I mean, the only reason I can think of why she says that is we don't get to see Salty all that often. Okay. So the PTA members all turn up at Icky's school and they try to have this emergency meeting with the headmaster over why Medabots should be banned. Every last pupil at Icky's school comes along to try and express their outrage over the idea of the PTA even considering the idea of Medabots being banned. It leads up to this really hilarious scene where all the students are arguing with the PTA members at once, and then the leader's like, shut up all of you, and she's like almost flailing her arms around. It's really hilarious. And with that, the PTA members have now decided to confiscate all of the students' Medabots, and have now decided to lock them all away in this one secluded room of the entire school. The thing is, I was actually fine, more or less, with the arguments that the PTA members had, except for the one with apparently the loser after a row battle has to trade one of their Medabots' parts and has to give them to the winner, and the PTA members stated that that was barbaric. The thing is, they're robots, they don't necessarily feel pain or anything, they don't really have a soul or anything. It's not like we're talking about human beings here. And that's a pretty dick thing to do, just steal all the kids' Medabots. Like, yeah, that is pretty much theft. That was why I actually started to lean further and further over to the side of the kids. I mean, yeah, it was like, it's really weird because with something like this you expect massive straw men for these kinds of characters that come in and say, well, you shouldn't really be doing that, you know, and stuff like that. We are the fun police, cleverly disguised as bureaucrats. But the thing is, and this is what I always really liked about this episode, they actually do give the PTA members that tried to ban all the Medabots a leg to stand on. And the thing is, yeah, like I said before, the Medabots in this anime have actually shown to be pretty dangerous because of just how much damage they can deal to the Medafighters. But later on, in the episode Extreme Measures, you actually see Space Medafighter X actually get struck by a samurai sword from one of the Rubber Robo's Medabots, but I'll go into that a little bit later on. Samurai, who is the headmaster's Medabot, goes to Icky, Medabots and Erika for help after Medabots distracts 2 PTA members that are trying to guard a door. The samurai cuts the lock off the door with a sword, shortly after Medabots is able to distract the PTA members. But when the camera cuts to a shot where you're still looking at Ikki and Samurai and Erika from inside the school as they're about to enter this room, Samurai is holding 2 swords, despite just previously only holding 1 sword. Like, what's going on? So when Ikki and Erika organise a picket line, there's a scene where the PTA and the teachers are looking on at what's going on, and one teacher comments, "Oh, it's like back in the 60s, man." It was just absolutely hilarious. The Rubber Robo gang decide to come along, and they threaten to destroy the entire school with rock and roll music if everybody that's inside the school doesn't hand over all of their Medabots medals. One PTA member tells another member, "Check my purse, I think I have some pepper spray." As soon as the Rubber Robos start to play their rock and roll music, the hippie teacher from before states, "Flashback to the war, man." Just absolutely hilarious. It makes me laugh every single time. So after the row battle between the Rubber Robo gang and Ikki and the headmaster, the PTA start crying after Medabots and Samurai win the row battle, and the headmaster starts asking the PTA, "Perhaps those Medabots have touched you emotionally, or it might be just the tear gas that you launched off earlier." And it ends with a really funny twist where the PTA members, they finally realise the whole entire reason why they tried to ban Medabots in the first place, it was because from one of the first scenes of this episode where the Rubber Robo gang knocked the leader of the PTA onto the floor, and she had some anti-aging wrinkle cream, and because of that the PTA members just chase her down the road, like trying to exile her from the PTA board. It's just really funny ending. All in all, this episode gets a 9.5 out of 10. Episode 13, Meet Your Medamaker. So the episode starts off with the Rubber Robos stealing some noodles from a local restaurant. Squidlips demands that the Rubber Robos start committing more evil deeds because he's getting sick and tired of the Rubber Robos just stealing from restaurants all the time. 2 of the 4 members agree upon Squidlips' suggestion, causing Squidlips to say, "I'm so touched that you agree." But then they turn around and state that instead of stealing noodles, they steal noodles that have shrimp and pork in it. Sea Slug suggests that they steal pizza instead. And then they end up getting caught by the restaurant owner that they stole the noodles from in the first place. And the 4 Rubber Robos are forced to clean up all the plates and cutlery. So a little bit later on into the episode, the Rubber Robos go back to their lair, and as it turns out, they use masking tape on the door to stop people from getting in. Okay. And then we find out that Sea Slug was never actually the leader of the Rubber Robos. It was in fact an evil scientist with a cat that has a visor over its eyes. We get to meet Dr. Aki, who is the inventor of the Medabots, and he really seems to like butterscotch pudding. Yeah, that's his thing. So Medabots lost the row battle against Cyan Dog, all because Dr. Aki literally throws Cyan Dog a bone, even though it was established that Cyan Dog was powered by a monkey-type medal in the episode Cyan Dog Bites Back. So, what the hell happened there? Shouldn't Cyan Dog have become really, really excited over a banana being thrown? Whatever. Anime is fucking weird, man, seriously. So Dr. Aki decides to take Ikki and Medabots on as his personal apprentices. He has them clean up around his house. And in the next couple of scenes where Ikki and Medabots are having to clean around Dr. Aki's house, we learn Koji is afraid of spiders. One of Karen's personal hobbies is cleaning. And we get to meet Rakusho again. Neutral Nurse gets taken by shrimp limps of the rubber robos, so Medabots and Icky challenge him to a row battle. Mr. Referee comes into the scene with a bungee, and the animation of him shouting row battle like he does at the beginning of every row battle featuring Medabots is upside down as well, which is just really funny. The rubber robos apparently have days off where they are not evil. Once again, I just love the Rubber Robo gang. They're like really funny, but they can be really serious when the plot needs them to be. They are just that really awesome, perfect blend of villainy. It really is just brilliant seeing these guys in action again. This episode gets a 9 out of 10 from me. Episode 14, The Spy Who Row Battled Me. Gee, I wonder if the title of this episode is trying to parody something. I wonder. I like how this episode starts off with Erika going from mocking Dr. Aki's polo tie to stating that she actually likes it when she finds out who Dr. Aki is. So Sea Slug from the Rubber Robos is spying on the Medabot Corporation so that he can try and get his hands on a rare medal. Sea Slug and the audience are introduced to a new character called Miss Caviar. He comments saying that Miss Caviar is quite a dish. It honestly feels like they gave the character that name just so that they could make that pun. And personally, I just don't think it was worth it. I'm also getting really sick of hearing Icky say holy metaroli whenever he's impressed by something. It was one of the aspects of Medabots that I always thought was quite cringy, honestly. So Dr. Aki explains to everyone that the Medabots are being mass-produced thanks to a new compound called M-alloy. Sea Slug encounters Miss Caviar again, and she gets him to come and see a secret experiment being conducted. She says, "Please walk this way," to which Sea Slug replies, "If I could walk that way, I wouldn't need aftershave." It was at that moment, when I was watching all these episodes again for this video, that I really sat back and I was like, you lost me, anime. You really lost me. Seriously, I tried to seriously analyse what the joke was there. Like, is it funny because people need aftershave in order to walk a specific way? Did he say aftershave because he was secretly developing a crush on Miss Caviar? I really don't get it. And to this day, it's still the most confusing joke I've ever heard in my life. But then Sea Slug reveals that he may have been eating dog food when he was going to school, so it's okay. So anyone who tries to discover the true secret behind the Medabots and their medals could end up facing death. Got to give this anime credit for having the balls to reference death. It's actually really refreshing. I'm so sick of watching cartoons nowadays where they try and really play it safe in fear of someone complaining. And it's actually really refreshing hearing a cartoon for kids actually talk about death or a character threatening to kill another character. Miss Caviar tries to talk Sea Slug down from the helicopter when it's revealed that Sea Slug was actually from the Rubber Robo gang. He doesn't actually go by the name Sea Slug, he's just pretending to be a new intern. But when Sea Slug finally reveals himself to everyone, Miss Caviar tells Sea Slug, when the security guys, the police and the courts get through with you, everything will be okay. It's just really funny. It's like Miss Caviar's trying her hardest to be really nice to Sea Slug, despite the fact that the Sea Slug has basically admitted that he's from the Rubber Robo gang. Mr. Referee couldn't referee the row battle against Sea Slug and Icky with Erika because he didn't have clarification to enter the Medabot Corporation. It's almost like, at this point, Mr. Referee really is just stalking Icky and Medabots so that he can referee their row battles. This is technically the first row battle that Brass has fought in. Honestly, Well, I think it's actually really cool seeing her actually battle because she's really competent as a fighter. It honestly begs the question why, in the very first episode, she didn't just fight those punk rocker meta fighters. Why did Brass and Erika have to wait for Icky to get his hands on a Medabot? So Miss Caviar breaks down quite emotionally after Sea Slug departs with the other rubber robos, and there's this really weird moment where Medaby responds with, Icky, get in there, catch her on the rebound. Like, did you just forget how old Icky was? That's a really weird thing to say to a kid. So it turns out Dr. Aki might actually be working with the Phantom Renegade. Mr. Referee, at the end of the episode, where he goes over things like, will so-and-so get through with this, will so-and-so do that, he says, what's up with that dog? When he asks the question, is the Phantom Renegade working for Dr. Aki? It's still to this day a really cool twist that I never actually see coming when I watch these episodes back. Overall, this episode gets a 10 out of 10 for being a pretty damn good episode. Episode 15, I Dream of Hushi. So the episode starts off with this pretty intense moment where Rakusho is dreaming about a fire that had started in a previous home that he had shared with a character called Professor Hushi. Again, I really do need to give this anime credit for having the balls to implement death, especially with an English dub. I'm going to try and not make this a running theme, but I really do need to point out that this is so very refreshing to see these elements of storytelling. So there's a woman called Ainsley who tells Rakusho off for being up in her favourite tree. The city forced to allegedly build around the tree because she had chained herself to it. Medaby was thankful that the tree wasn't a cactus. Rakusho had been searching for answers to what had happened all those years ago because he can't remember. Personally, I like this lone wolf character that Medabots tried to do because I've seen these kinds of characters before and I just cannot take them all that seriously. Looking at you, Shadow the Hedgehog. So Ainsley befriends Rakusho. After a certain amount of time passes, there's an unknown stranger posing some kind of a threat that appears in Ainsley's back garden. Nothing really happened other than someone was trespassing, but either way, Ainsley invites Rakusho into her home and reveals a Medabot Butterfly loves the outdoors, even though you can hear her saying, so cold. There's another moment where Ainsley is having a conversation with Rakusho. Apparently she'd had a run-in with a dog trying to mark its territory on a favourite tree, and she had to remove its bark, to which Rakusho asks, the dog? It's just a really funny moment, and the fact that it comes from Rakusho, a character who, for the longest amount of time, has been quite possibly the most serious character in the whole series. Rakusho goes back to Ainsley's house and notices a book open with photos of Ainsley and possibly the husband that Ainsley was once living with before he passed away suddenly. She scolds Rakusho for poking around, yet she left the book open unguarded for anyone to read. Like, if you didn't want anybody reading or touching your stuff, maybe don't have it out in the open. Rakusho tells Ainsley that it's hard to cope with death, and he could easily get caught up in the past. Ainsley immediately tells Rakusho to stop as she doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Yet she was the one who brought up her dead husband to begin with, and even brought up turning the old master bedroom into a guest room. Bipolar much? I mean, okay, fair enough, she's had to deal with a lot of shit, but seriously? The conversation also steers very quickly over to war medals that Ainsley's husband had been collecting. I like how they have a joke about Medaby watching soap operas in secret. Like, you can tell this anime was made in the very late 1990s. Oh wow, this guy, who's usually a tough guy, likes watching soap operas because tough guys don't watch soap operas. Fuck off. Rokusho spots Ikki and Medabi and mistakes them as more interlopers, but then he leaves when he discovers that it's actually Ikki and Medabi. Medabi states, "Come on, I want to see that sword move again, but this time just do it on Ikki, okay?" Which is really funny. Rokusho talks to Ikki and Medabi about how they would be having this conversation at a hospital had Rokusho not deflected his sword attack at the last second. And then he talks about the dreams that he's been having, with Medabi stating that he thought he was the only Medabot that could dream, and that one time he dreamt of electric sheep. Did the sheep have to be electric in order for that joke to work? Whatever. Professor Hushi's body was never found. The professor's body was never found. A direct quote from Medabots. Just wow. The Rubber Robos attack Ainsley again, whilst trying to look for the rare medals, but end up finding a box buried under a tree. The Rubber Robos unleash some sort of flamethrower Medabot that Rokusho ends up fighting on his own. And this, in my opinion, is where the episode just unravels into this really stupid, dumb, fucking chain reaction of events. The tree that was really important to Ainsley ends up burning because nobody did anything to stop the flame-throwing robot from setting fire to it. And like an idiot, Rokusho just takes the flames as he tries to defend the tree. He could have just attacked the Medabot several times with his sword, so at the very least it would lose the usage of his arms, but no. That would be the smart thing to do. Also, everyone just stands around the tree as it burns. Not one person is seen trying to call for a fire brigade. They just stand around watching Ainsley open a box that was hidden underground near the now burning tree. Medabi makes a joke about the poem that was on the back of the photo of Ainsley and a dead husband. But honestly, I genuinely cannot be bothered to remember what Medabi actually said. I'd made loads of notes for every episode of the Medaforce saga, and honestly, I just can't be arsed going back to watch what Medabi actually said. This was an episode that started off promising, but then more and more of this episode became unravelled by some really minor problems here and there. And then it just became really poor at the end, with everybody losing their common sense. This episode gets a 6 from me. Episode 16, Medabi vs Rokusho. So the episode starts off with the Rubber Robos offering a kid a Rubber Robo uniform in exchange for a Medabot medal. And then they end up catching a cold because they fall into a hole after squaring up to Rokusho after he stops them from taking the kid's medal. Ikki gets done row-battling the screws in, I'm assuming was a 3-on-1 fight. Mr. Referee still hangs around even after the screws have left, and Ikki asks, what do you suppose he does when he's not refereeing? I bet everybody who's ever watched this anime has asked that question at least once. Ikki and Medabi give chase for a group of Rubber Robos trying to steal from Karen, but they leave her alone when Ikki and Medabi arrive. Karen has a box with an injured bird inside and she's looking for a doctor. She really should be after a vet, but whatever. It turns out the bird is a parrot called Baton, who belongs to Professor Hushi, that Rokusho was friends with. Rokusho and Baton have a moment together as Baton starts to regain consciousness, and Ikki asks, Baton want a cracker? Okay. Baton dies, but it turns out he was a robot, which Rokusho forgot to mention. Rokusho tried to repair Baton, and whilst he is doing so, Medabi states, Baton belongs in a cuckoo clock. Because he's a bird? Or was it because he was malfunctioning as Rokusho was trying to repair him? I'm lost. The gang take Baton to Dr. Aki's place so Rakusho can repair him. Dr. Aki has a funny moment where he states he really wanted to repair the parrot, but then ruins it for himself when he states, "The rubber robos are spying on my house. They must have a serious axe to grind." And he just so happens to be holding an axe that Henry was using to chop wood. Just another lame joke. Baton has a moment where he starts reliving the moment Professor Hushi's house burnt down. And judging from the implications from what Baton is saying, and Dr. Aki entering the room, still holding the axe from before, Rakusho believes it was Dr. Aki that started the fire. The Phantom Renegade tries to calm Rakusho down as Dr. Aki and Karen leave, but a fire starts to occur from the fireplace in the room that this whole scene was taking place in. One thing leads to another, and before you know it, an angered Rakusho has now got Dr. Aki and the Phantom Renegade cornered on the top of Dr. Aki's house. Rakusho threatens to turn Dr. Aki into a funeral pyre. Damn, that's so cool. All these implications of murder and death. This anime has the fucking balls, and I respect that. The Phantom Renegade states that he needs to remove Rakusho's medal or else they'll all be burnt to a crisp. Okay, but you guys do plan on getting off the roof, don't you? You know, priorities. During the row battle between Rakusho and Medabots, the Phantom Renegade asks Ikki if he's worried, and Ikki replies, "Yeah, Rakusho keeps attacking Medabots. It's like he doesn't care about what happens to himself." Okay, fair enough, you're worried about the outcome of the row battle, but not because you're all still standing on top of a burning house. Rakusho emits a strange light from his body, and it turns out it's the Medaforce. And this is something I always thought was really cool. Normally in programs like these, where they reveal that there's this massive plot point or plot device, whatever you want to call it, it's usually the main character that introduces it. But in Medabots, it's Rakusho, who I feel was always one of the more major characters. Like, he wasn't exactly a main character, but he did definitely play a big role in Medabots. But anyway, he ends up insta-killing Medabots with it. Then the Rubber Robos reappear with a Medabot called Robo Emperor. All in all, this episode is pretty good. It has some moments here and there that kinda made the episode dip a bit in my opinion, but overall this was still a good watch. It gets a 7.5 from me. Episode 17, Use the Medaforce, or Discovery of the Medaforce. Yeah, this episode's a little bit weird because for whatever reason, depending on what region you live in, it's either called Use the Medaforce or Discovery of the Medaforce. Anyway, the row battle between Rakusho and the Robo Emperor begins, and not only is Mr. Referee fearing for his life as Robo Emperor fires missiles at everyone, Erika asks, "I hope Dr. Aki has health insurance." She says this whilst the house is still burning down to the ground. In fact, why is it taking so long for the house to burn down? Why is everyone still alive? How is everyone still alive? How is it that everybody is still breathing comfortably? Like, shouldn't there be loads of smoke in the air? Why the fuck isn't the fire brigade here yet? Do firefighters just not exist in the world of Medabots? Even after unleashing the Medaforce, Rakusho still ends up being defeated by Robo Emperor. So the Phantom Renegade goes back to retrieve Rakusho. He makes a joke about how he apologises for only bringing one grappling hook with him. And finally, everybody gets away from the burning house. So a little bit later on into the episode, we go into some backstory on the history of Medabots. So after Dr. Aki gets done explaining the history of Medabots, either being manufactured to explaining the medals and the rare medals, Erika accuses Dr. Aki of killing Professor Hushi because Professor Hushi got in the way of mass producing Medabots, and apparently Dr. Aki didn't like that. which causes Dr. Aki to have this really funny, detailed and dramatic facial expression. Dr. Aki and Miss Caviar decide to scan Baton to see if there's anything worth noting, and they manage to find that someone had placed some sort of implant into Baton's microprocessors, which then in turn proves that Dr. Aki didn't kill Professor Hushi. Karen says she can call off the SWAT team so they don't arrest Dr. Aki, and Icky then states, "Can we still take cover under the table?" Why? We just proved that Dr. Aki was innocent, even though we didn't really need to. The Phantom Renegade locates another hideout that belongs to the Rubber Robos, and after a bad sneak attack, manages to escape by shouting, "Look, it's the Phantom Renegade," before throwing a smoke bomb. Rakusho regains consciousness as he's being carried out of the Rubber Robos' lair, after being told by the Phantom Renegade that he was just giving Rakusho a hand. Rakusho states, "Yeah, could you maybe give me a hand somewhere else, maybe above the waist?" It's probably worth mentioning here that Henry's hands are almost touching Rakusho's ass. Okay. So the Rubber Robos corner the Phantom Renegade, but Sea Slug appears out of nowhere, causing Squid Guts to state, "I thought you were a teddy bear." Okay. I mean, I get it, Sea Slug is like really big, but how do you confuse somebody like Sea Slug as a teddy bear? Anyway, so during the battle with Robo Emperor, Medabots starts to take a lot of damage, but after talking to Baton, Rakusho decides to help him in the fight. Medabots unleashes the Medaforce for the very first time when Rakusho ends up entangled in Robo Emperor's tentacles. Icky states that Medabots must have had a rare medal all along, but didn't we already establish this in a previous episode? Didn't Icky already find this out? The gang questions where the Phantom Renegade went, and Icky states was probably past his bedtime. Then Erica responds with, "For a thief of the night, he really needs a later curfew." Rakusho departs ways and promises a road battle with Medabots in the future. This episode is pretty damn good, I think. It's a really nice episode, not just because of the humour and the action and the fact that Medabots finds out that he can unleash the Medaforce now, which has made this all the more interesting. I really like how the Rubber Robos are really stepping up their game now, unleashing all of these weapon-type Medabots, like Robo Emperor, and later on they even unleash another one that's even worse called Mega Emperor, but we'll get to that later on. This episode gets an 8.5 out of 10. Episode 18, 15 Minutes of Shame. Okay, so get this. Henry doesn't believe that the medal that's inside Medabots is a rare medal, despite the fact that Medabots has been able to use the Medaforce, which this anime has made very clear that in order to use the Medaforce, you need to have a rare medal. Not to mention the fact that Henry, who was the Phantom Renegade, manages to drop the rare medal that Icky just so happened to find in the lake, again, within the same episode. And Henry was able to put the two and two together and realise that the medal that he had dropped was also the same medal that Icky had found out of pure luck, ergo Medabots having a rare medal. So Erika comes rushing in to tell Icky about the upcoming Medabot World Tournament, saying, "This is bigger than my story about shop class," or design technology for anyone from England. Not actually teaching students about shopping. See, this is a weird joke because, like I said, it's not called shop class in England. It's, it's more or less, design and technology, which is where you cut wood up and sand stuff down with a sander. So that joke was a bit weird hearing that joke for the first time back when I watched this episode on Fox Kids, before it became Jetix. And before that became Disney XD. And before that became nothing at all. But this is where it gets a bit confusing. Medabots states that it's not a big deal that Ikki and Medabots are in third place overall for the whole world rankings in Japan, because Medabots wishes he was in first place, but everyone keeps telling him that it is a big deal. But then after Ikki gets done talking about how he and Medabots plan on drinking grape soda from the cup trophy when they win, Eureka states that both Ikki and Medabots shouldn't be bragging too much because they're still in third. Like, what is this anime on? You just went and said, this is really awesome how Ikki and Medabots are both in third place in the rankings for Japan overall, but yet you've then gone and backpedaled and said it's actually not a big deal. Like, what are you on, Eureka? I love when Koji goes to brag to Karen about finishing in second place in the overall rankings, but he becomes overshadowed by Karen, who says that she's impressed that Ikki managed to come third overall despite only row battling for a few months now, which is just really funny. The screws come along and decide to give Ikki advice, and Samantha gets annoyed when Ikki pushes her aside every time she talks about how Ikki had been taken under Samantha's wing. Then Ikki's mum just comes right the fuck out of nowhere and just randomly kisses Samantha in an attempt to teach the kids the importance of kissing and making up. This anime is just really fucking weird. When I saw this the first time, I just paused for a second and I was like, I swear this made more sense in the Japanese dub. It must have done. There was no way that the people doing the English dub looked at this and were like, oh yeah, this random woman coming up to a young girl who sounds like she's smoked a cigarette too many and just randomly kissed her. Yeah, that's totally fine, yeah, sure. So Samantha and Ikki row battle each other, and the row battle ends with Peppercat KOing Medabots because Ikki kept demanding Medabots to use the Medaforce, despite either of them not knowing how to actually use it. It's just really stupid that Ikki would just assume that Medabots would just there and then use the Medaforce, like he'd mirror what he did in that previous row battle where he discovered he could use the Medaforce for the very first time against Robo Emperor. Even the anime calls Ikki out for this, when you get this scene later on where Eureka just chastises Ikki for demanding Medabots use the Medaforce. Really stupid. So Ikki asks Dr. Aki to help them, or else Ikki and Medabots face being knocked out of third place. Dr. Aki now lives in Henry's shop. So it's kind of like referencing the previous episode where Dr. Aki's house burnt down. That's pretty funny. I keep saying that a lot, don't I? That's pretty funny. That's anyway. So apparently the row battle with Ikki this morning didn't reward Samantha with any points for the tournament, which I was just like, oh, how convenient. So then Ikki gets challenged to a meta fighter who looks suspiciously similar to Bruce Lee. He was in a previous row battle with Samantha, and he challenges Ikki for the third place position so he can go to the World Championships and make his mother proud. Which is just a brilliant scene. There's this moment where Medabots gets told to jump into the water during the row battle that he has with Spitfire, and Mr. Dragon, who is parodying Bruce Lee, states to his Medabot Spitfire, stay on him, he can't stay underwater forever. There's this really weird pause in between him saying underwater and forever. It's really weird. It's like the voice actor nearly almost forgot his line or something. Also, he kept swinging his nunchucks around as the row battle was playing out. Yeah, we get it, you're trying to parody Bruce Lee. It's bad enough this anime had that stereotypical gag with a martial artist who's experienced with nunchucks, or he just so happens to have a pair of nunchucks hit himself with his own nunchuck. Even at the time this anime came out, that just seemed like a really tired gag. I like that moment between Icky and Mr. Dragon where Mr. Dragon warns Icky after he wins the row battle that he needs to watch his back as everyone is going to try to knock him and Medabots out of third place. This really eloquent moment that really makes it very clear that Icky and Medabots have a lot to lose. I thought this was a good episode overall. I give 15 Minutes of Shame a 7 out of 10. Episode 19, Enter Rintaro. Alright, so 5 seconds into this episode and I'm already confused. As Spike calls his Medabot Crosser Dog instead of Cyan Dog. He explains that his Medabot is now brilliant after putting Cyan Dog's medal into the new Crosser Dog body, but what difference would that make, seeing as how it was established in a previous episode that Cyan Dog was bad in every row battle he was in, as he had a monkey type medal that was better at grappling, but both Cyan Dog and Crosser Dog are both built for shooting. Did the people that make this anime just completely forget that? What's going on here? You made the rule that monkey type Medabots are better at grappling, so Cyan Dog should have been more of a grappling type Medabot, but so Spike should have put that medal into a monkey type Medabot instead, but no, just give Cyan Dog better row battling Medabot parts or whatever. That'll apparently make him better. Whatever. It feels like a massive arse pull. I mean, I know this is the English dub and everything, but it still feels like a massive arse pull. So, Crosser Dog states to Spike that they shouldn't fear the Medabot that just appears out of nowhere standing on top of a transformer. Neither should they fear the lightning that's occurring either, as they are both down on the ground. Then the two end up being struck by lightning. What difference does it make if you're standing on the ground? Lightning is lightning. I don't know what to tell you. Icky tells Dr. Aki about how Medabots was fighting a ninja-type Medabot with help from Crosser Dog in an alleged previous episode, who was also apparently teamed up with other ninja-type Medabots as well, but again, it's like that hasn't happened yet either. We're only about a couple of seconds into this episode, and apparently this episode somehow thinks that we had already established Spike changing Cyan Dog into Crosser Dog and an alleged row battle with Medabots versus some ninja type Medabots who we later on find out were controlled by the Rubber Robo gang. It has something to do, and I think I've already mentioned this, with the really weird way that these episodes were aired on TV. In fact, and I'm probably going to mention this again, in fact I will mention this again when I talk about the World Row Battling Tournament saga, that I think it's episode 1 of that saga was actually supposed to be episode 6 of the Medaforce saga, which, yeah, just gonna throw that out there. Dr. Aki states that the Medabots from Icky's story were perhaps made from another company. Then he states that he needs to go fight to Belgium as he has a hankering for some waffles. What? Okay, go get some waffles. Why do you need to fight to Belgium? That'd be like me saying, I need to go fight an American because I want a pretzel. You know, just... So apparently Peppercat and several other Medabots were attacked by Medabots, but both Icky and Medabots state that it's not their doing. When Samantha and Sloane tried to catch Icky and Medabots, Sloane states he's in peak physical condition, to which Samantha replies, yeah, for a cow, then says, come on, move, which actually did kind of tickle me. So Icky and Medaby go off to hide under a bridge in the park to try and figure out who could have framed them, to which they come to the conclusion that they were both cloned. Okay. We finally get to meet Rintaro, who talks like a stereotypical surfer or teenager. He's basically a kid that likes to say dude a lot, and he just has a bit of a stoner voice as well. Mr. Referee apparently cross-dresses, which is really funny as well. Also, Kintarot, who is Rintaro's Medabots, has a really funny deep voice as well. He kind of sounds like Shaft. You know, he's really funny. Koji monologues to himself that he can't let this punk, as in Rintaro, beat him up, as he doesn't even know what that means. Or was it batter him up? I know that was the joke, but if you don't know what a catchphrase means, why would you use it? Like, even if you were monologuing to yourself in your head. So Kintarot goes for the finishing blow to win the row battle against Similodon, and as he does so, he states, paper, plastic, or body bag. Just really fucking badass. Mr. Referee cancels the row battle when Kintarot stumbles after Similodon counters with a ground fist, causing the ground to crack up, which in turn causes Kintarot to shoot everyone watching the row battle by accident, and causing a sign to land on Mr. Referee. Medaby states at this point, don't worry, Mr. Referee will be fine, as soon as he regains consciousness and learns how to walk again. This anime has some really hilariously dark moments because of just how blink and you'll miss it kind of way. So we learn, or at least I did, that the Medabots that had allegedly attacked Medaby were, again, the Rubber Robo's Medabots. So after a scene with the Rubber Robos bickering over the next mission, we go back to Henry's shop where Rintaro is amazed at Medaby as he looks like the same Medabot that a guy called Henry used in the World Row Battling Tournament 8 years ago. Then an argument breaks out. Then a fight. Then Henry yells at everyone. That escalated quickly. Also, how can Rintaro state that he is a couple of months older than both Icky and Koji when nobody has ever stated how old the three are? Like, there was never a scene where Icky states passively, you know, I'm X years old. You know, we never get that from Koji. Rintaro doesn't even tell us how old he is in this episode, so what gives? So Icky and Koji row battle Rintaro. Karen states, don't row battle over me as it's not worth it, to which Erika retorts, you said it, but I was thinking it. Like, what? Again, it's really weird. This anime can be really funny one minute, then be really confusing the next. So Shrimp Lips of the Rubber Robos challenges Icky under his real name, Shrimpy Lipper Whip, which causes Rintaro to state that he transformed. Erika replies with, no, he just got changed, and Koji asks, his name's Shrimpy. So the Screws are talking to each other about what Spike saw the other day. Spike says that it was all a misunderstanding, as the Medabot they saw on top of the Transformer wasn't what zapped Spike and Crossadog, but rather a bolt of lightning, to which Salone hilariously asks, how are you still alive? Icky, Koji and Rintaro ultimately end up losing to Shrimpy, so Medaby's medal gets won from Icky. But then the Medabot that Spike and Crossadog spotted from earlier on appears again. This episode overall is pretty good. I give it an 8 out of 10. Episode 20, The Ace from Outer Space. So we finally get to meet Space Medafighter X, who's number 1 in the Japanese Medafighter standings. There's some funny jokes, like Erika stating that she should have brought more film, and Shrimp Lips stating XYZ, it doesn't matter. It really tickled me. It's one of those jokes where it caught me off guard. It's like, it's really simple joke that another person would think was really corny or lame, and yet I just watched it thinking, wow, that's actually quite clever. After winning the row battle against Shrimp Lips, Space Medafighter X gives Rintaro his autograph, which just consists of a big letter X, to which Rintaro hilariously brags about. Space Medafighter X roasts Icky for not taking better care of his medal. I mean, let's be real here. Icky scratched that most of the people witnessing the row battle between Icky and Shrimp Lips were like twice the size of Shrimp Lips. So they could have gotten Icky's medal back either way. Shrimp Lips reports back to the mystery leader of the Rubber Robos of his defeat, and as he does so, Squid Guts, Sea Slug and the Gill Girl roast Shrimp Lips, but he manages to roast Squid Guts by stating, "The only space you know of is the space in between your ears." Shrimp Lips is given one more chance to get Medabee's rare medal, or else he'll be changing his own nappies from now on. Which just hilariously raises so many questions. Icky has now dropped to 4th place in the rankings because he was defeated by Shrimp Lips, and Erika vents her frustration out on Koji and Karen. Koji states it was bad enough losing to the Rubber Robos, but the fact that the Space Medafighter X had rubbed it in their faces was worse. Karen at this point states that Space Medafighter X did a good job making all three of them look silly, with Koji replying, "Thanks for the reminder." Mr. Referee just so happens to be looking for his contact lenses in a dustbin behind Erika. He creepily blows a kiss at the three after taking offence at Erika suggesting that the Rubber Robos found a loophole. But then he climbs back into the dustbin only to be dumped into the back of a dustbin lorry. It's another one of these moments where it ends up being really creepy, but then it ends up being really funny again. I really don't know how to explain this anime. So Icky is still low in mood after his defeat to Shrimp Lips, and he's just about to storm out of the house, but then Rintaro and Kintarot take Icky and Medabee to a Medabot dojo to train up, with Icky tied up and on a leash. The four previously mentioned get to meet the dojo master, who states wasting time is just as important as a balanced attack, to which Medabee replies, "Man, that's deep." Erika, Karen and Koji ask around for Icky, to which his mum states that Rintaro was here not too long ago, and that they both went to a gym. Now this is where it gets a little bit confusing. Koji states that they've been to 15 dojos when they finally reach the one that Icky is actually in, and he hopes that this is the one that Icky is actually in. So does this mean the dojo that Rintaro took Icky to isn't the only Medabot dojo in Japan? And why do the characters keep calling it a gym? Last time I checked, a dojo and a gym were not the same thing. So they find Icky, who still doesn't want to take part in anything, and so Koji tries to encourage Icky by stating, "You have to beat the sky before you can conquer the universe." And he puts on a suit which totally doesn't look like something the Rubber Robo gang would wear, and says to the dojo master, "Guide me, O wise one." To which the dojo master replies nonchalantly, "Whatever, man." As it turns out, the dojo master might not be who he seems, as Erika and Karen find someone bound and gagged in the back, suggesting this guy is the real dojo master. So Icky is challenged to another row battle by Shrimp Lips, and it's a pretty cool row battle that ends up with Medabee using the Medaforce. Then Space Medafighter X appears. He gives Icky a thumbs up for his victory, and Koji wonders how he plans to defeat Medabee now that he has the Medaforce. Then Mr. Referee gives the end episode next time message, like he does at the end of a lot of the episodes, where he basically concludes what you've just been watching for the past couple of minutes. And this time round, his tune in next time message was, "Will the dojo master ever be untied?" which is just hilarious because now that I think about it, they never did get round to actually untying him. This episode gets a 10 out of 10 from me for being just an absolutely perfect piece of animation from start to finish. Episode 21, Me and My Shadow Sword. I like how Similodon at the start of this episode questions Koji's training with the Space Medafighter X by asking, shouldn't I be the one training? Koji begs Space Medafighter X to teach him the Shadow Sword attack, and Similodon retorts with, he's stubborn, when Koji's butler states he won't take no for an answer. The whole reason Koji is now trying desperately to learn the Shadow Sword attack is so that he can stand a chance against Ikki and Medabi. Rintaro calls Space Medafighter X out for being Henry all along. Not Henry from the corner shop, but some other Henry from the World Row Battle Tournament 8 years ago. Space Medafighter X becomes more and more annoyed when everyone starts taking the piss out of Henry, and he finally leaves. Ikki breaks up an argument against Erika and Koji when she won't stop recording Koji's training. Ikki states, cool it, we're all friends here. But weren't Ikki and Koji, for the most part, enemies or even rivals? That just sounds kind of weird for Ikki to kind of state that they are all friends, including Koji. Whatever. Ikki and Medabi train so that they can rise back up to 3rd place in the rankings, and whilst they do so, they get to meet Space Medafighter X again, who tries to give them wisdom, but it just comes across as nonsense to the duo. Fairly humorous scene with Ikki and Medabi running across a bridge. Ikki keeps responding with, yeah. Also sounds like they just used the one instance of the voice actor saying yeah, which makes the scene even funnier. Every time Medabi asks Ikki a question, Ikki just says yeah. So Medabi asks Ikki, say yeah again if you're a complete and total idiot who isn't even listening to a single word of what I'm saying, to which Ikki replies with yeah. Ikki still wonders how he plans to counter Koji's newly taught ability that will counter the Medaforce, and Medabi suggests that he wears Rakusho's old cape. So basically Medabi suggests that he cheats. Ikki also becomes a ventriloquist when he states Rakusho's old cape will give him the answer he needs. His mouth is completely closed as he says it, which is really odd. I wouldn't mind it so much if it was implied that Ikki was thinking to himself, but there's no echo effect or anything which implies that he is thinking to himself, so it's just really odd. Koji tries to meditate over the course of the night, but Karen keeps interrupting him, once by planting something to repel insects, something that Koji has made very clear he doesn't like, and again by making him dinner. Koji becomes irritated, but Karen thinks he's irritated because there wasn't any coleslaw in the dinner that she packed for him. Koji is driven so mad that he decides to jump into a lake in total frustration, when Karen still doesn't get the message because she thinks Koji was hoping for pizza. After Koji dives into a nearby lake, Karen replies, wait, they deliver. Koji and Ikki finally get ready to row battle. Medabi looks like he's charging up the Medaforce, so Koji tells Similodon to use the Shadow Sword attack. But Medabi jumps out of the way of the Shadow Sword attack and manages to counter with his laser cannon. Similodon responds with, I'll take a little nap now, and Medabi wins. After the row battle, everyone is really happy with the progress that was made. Koji is happy for Ikki, and Ikki congratulates Koji for being a really good Medafighter, or row battler, or whatever you want to call him. Rintaro tries to explain how Medabi won. Erika responds with, is Medabi even wearing that cape allowed? To which Koji then replies with, why not? There's no rule against it. But the way I see it, there's no rule that states that what Medabots did was legal either. Ikki turns into a ventriloquist yet again, but this time Koji seems to become a ventriloquist as well. During the scene where Space Medafighter X tells Koji and Ikki that they should be proud for their row battle. The episode ends with Ikki finding out that his mother has been kidnapped by the Rubber Robo gang, and it's pretty funny. This episode is actually pretty good. It has a lot of humour, a really nice row battle against Medabots and Similodon. It honestly feels like that the stakes are just that much higher now, especially with Ikki trying to get back into third place so that he can row battle in the World Row Battle Tournament. This episode gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Episode 22, Dude, Where's My Ma? You don't suppose the title of this episode was a parody of a film, do you? So, Ikki finds out that his mother has been kidnapped by the Rubber Robos. Medabots comments saying, "The Rubber Robos took your mum and ate our dinner. Now I've seen it all." Which is actually really cool. Okay, so Ikki decides to call his dad to let him know what's going on, or what's happened. And it's a really weird scene because both Ikki and his dad end up being cut off, and they think the other one just hung up. It's really odd. Karen reads from the list that the Rubber Robos had left. And there are 3 things on the list. 1, Ikki's mum is apparently fine. 2, it may seem that there was a struggle, but really there was no struggle at all. And 3, I'm not really your mother. Just, okay. Also, Sea Slug, who turns out was one of the Rubber Robos that wrote the note, tells Ikki not to go to the police or else he will tell the police that Ikki records TV row battles without the consent of the World Medabot Federation. Just why would both parties ever care about that? Okay, you could maybe argue copyright, but normally when people record stuff, it's mostly for their own entertainment anyway, and, you know, it honestly feels like everybody in this anime, like, watches the same thing anyway, and everyone always seems to be really up to date with what is shown on TV, so it just doesn't make any sense. Ikki monologues to himself saying, "If we don't get my mum back, she'll have no one to tuck in at night." Ikki's mum states during her interrogation by the Rubber Robos that the ropes that were used to tie her up are very loose, and she even goes as far as asking the Rubber Robos if she can show them how to tie a double knot. It's a really funny episode, and it even involves the Rubber Robos actually discovering that they really like Ikki's mum. She's making them bowls of noodles and offering to patch up their Rubber Robo outfits. It's just a really brilliant scene. Ikki and Medabots set off to find Ikki's mum, who is now helping the Rubber Robos. Gill Girl is the only one who doesn't like how Ikki's mum is now free and is now cooking the Rubber Robos their meals. Ikki and Medabots finally find the hideout after using a map that the Rubber Robos had apparently drawn for them. Medabots manages to win the row battle against Gill Girl's Medabots by having them both argue with each other after finding out that they don't get along with each other. Medabots wins the second row battle with the Medaforce, but it's not over because the Rubber Robos state that because Ikki's mum is on the line, because she's really nice to them, the Rubber Robos have made it very clear that they've set this all up so even if Medabots wins, he's destined to lose to the Rubber Robos because they'll just keep challenging him. And she's actually quite clever, I thought. Ikki's mum comes along to make everyone snacks just before Ikki and Medabots have to fight a third time. Ikki and Medabots both get grilled again, this time for putting Ikki's own mother first instead of being concerned about getting to third place in the World Championships. And this time it's by Space Medafighter X. Icky becomes a ventriloquist when he decides that he's not going to allow Space Medafighter X to insult him. So Icky and Medabi challenge Space Medafighter X and his robot Arc Beetle to a row-battle. Like I said, I really don't think there is anything else I can say about this episode. It is pretty damn good. It gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Episode 23, Extreme Measures. So apparently Karen has Rintaro on standby for whenever Icky needs someone to challenge him for 3rd place. And Karen calls him Rinty Poo. Okay. The Screws appear to help Icky win by transporting their Medaparts to Medabi, with interest of course, so that Medabi can fight Arc Beetle in their row battle. Rintaro gives Medabi his laser cannon parts and Koji gives Medabi his leg parts for Similodon. Erika looks like she's going to kiss Icky, but she then gives him a headbutt instead, for good luck. What's funny about this scene is Space Medafighter X states that he would have preferred a rabbit's foot. The row battle against Arc Beetle and Medabi is really good, and it has some pretty good animation, especially with the way the Medabots move during the fight. So, because Medabi is still drained from the previous row battle against the numerous Medabots from the Rubber Robo gang, Medabi is apparently now low in spirit, and in order to deal any actual damage to Arc Beetle, then he needs to acquire a full spirit, which to me just seemed a little bit contrived. Like, all this time it just seemed to be a case of find the Medabot's weak spot and then that was it, but whatever. So it turns out Space Medafighter X was actually the Phantom Renegade all along. Who'd have thunk it? And Mega Emperor appears to destroy everything. Mega Emperor's specialty is apparently powerful missile. So his laser cannon for his left arm, the ability for him to send powerful lasers from his head, the fact that he can tank practically anything thrown at him, that's just all for show? What? In the scene where Icky and Phantom Renegade are taking cover from Mega Emperor's attacks, Medabi appears to be missing one of his legs. You can even see where the leg is supposed to be. As in, like, animated. Icky and Medabi stay behind to stop Mega Emperor when Icky's dad tells Icky that curfew is about 8 PM. It's funny because your son could die. Mega Emperor is defeated by the Phantom Renegade when Phantom manages to remove Mega Emperor's medal. Pretty clever, actually. Seriously, him actually removing the medal out the back of the Medabot that's actually a pretty good move because, you know, without the medal, the Medabot can't function. But now Icky, Koji, Medabi and Similodon are now cornered by an armada of rubber robos. This episode is brilliant from start to finish, and it gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Episode 24, The Road to Ruins, or Raiders of the Lost Medabots. So, Medabi was taken by the rubber robos? When did this happen? The previous episode ended with them being cornered on that cliff. And this episode immediately starts off with Icky trying to catch up with a Rubber Robo Gang helicopter that now has Medabi. Seriously, did we miss something here? I think there might be another case of censorship here, or just a general case of something being edited out, but because it was edited out, it meant the storytelling is a little bit all over the place. Also, how old exactly is Shrimp Lips? Is he a baby? An adult with incontinence? Is he a Rugrat? Like, what is Shrimp Lips? I don't think we will ever find out.
Koji tells Karen and the gang that he and Ikki are going to get Medabi back. Karen asks Koji if she can talk to Ikki, but Koji hangs up on her. Ikki asks, "Did Karen ask about me?" and Koji just replies with no. Shrimp Lips takes Ikki and Koji to the secret Rubber Robo hideout. Seriously, how many hideouts do the Rubber Robos have? I think this might actually be number 3, at least. Ikki, Koji and Shrimp Lips get caught by the Rubber Robos, but the Screws, Erika, Rintaro and Karen help Ikki and Koji escape, with Karen throwing a smoke bomb. Ikki and Koji try to get Karen to safety, but it turned out to be Samantha instead, who may or may not have a crush on Koji. Ikki states that Koji and Samantha are going to make him sick, but Shrimp Lips makes the whole scenario awkward by stating, "Me too, but for some reason I can't stop watching." Seriously, Shrimp Lips, how old are you? Ikki, Koji, Samantha and Shrimp Lips end up being chased by a pack of Rubber Robos, but they get trapped in a net. The Rubber Robos don't see this and continue chasing them down the corridors of the ancient tomb. Seriously, you guys, they're right up in the ceiling. All you have to do is just tilt your heads up and you would have found them. The net was put there by Sea Slug, Squid Guts and Gill Girl in an attempt to get Shrimp Lips back. So the Rubber Robos knew that they'd been captured? Anyway, the 4 Rubber Robos ditch Ikki and the others, but Samantha and Koji stay with Ikki when Pepper Cat and Similodon can be heard calling out to Medabi for support. Pepper Cat and Similodon are challenged to a row battle against 3 Belzelgas. They prove to be too much for Pepper Cat and Similodon, but fortunately Rakusho just so happens to appear. Seriously, where the hell did he come from? He just appears out of nowhere, and this anime never explains how and why he found everyone. Like, seriously. But this episode gets an 8.5 out of 10 from me overall. Episode 25, Beetle Mania. So the mastermind behind stealing Medabi's rare medal finally reveals himself as Dr. Medieval. He then sets the 3 Belzelgas and the Rubber Robos on Rakusho, but Rakusho manages to one-hit KO not only the 3 Belzelgas, but the 3 Rubber Robos commanding the Belzelgas. Rakusho states, "Don't worry, I just knocked them out," but he clearly used his sword. Was anyone else having a flashback to Dragon Ball Z where Yajirobe manages to use his katana on Vegeta, and Vegeta simply states, "You nearly cut through my armor"? Seriously, what the fuck? Rakusho states he came here to put an end to the Rubber Robos once and for all, and yet that he still doesn't explain how he found this place, let alone why is he here. Rakusho states that he came here to put an end to the Rubber Robos once and for all. That's nice and all, but that still doesn't really explain how you managed to find this place though. So the Medabot medals were created by an ancient civilization before the humans came along, which is what we, the audience, find out when Ikki and Koji stumble upon some really weird tribal painting in one of the caves that Shrimp Lips leads the two to. We cut back to Erika and Karen, who are still being chased by some bat-type Medabots. Erika accidentally transports Brass to their location, but Brass destroys the bat-type Medabots, no problem. But something is very wrong with Brass. Rintaro, Spike and Sloane are still stuck in the tomb that has now got its walls closing in on the 3. Why neither of them decided to just call them Medabots to blast the walls down, I have no idea. But Canterot finally gets that idea, but like Brass, something is wrong with him too. Miss Caviar states that the Medabots in the building that they are in are now out of control, with Dr. Aki calmly stating, "What? What was up with that line, Reed?" I think you should have been a little bit more surprised there, or I don't know. So, going back to Dr. Medieval, I don't know if his name is really funny or really stupid. I suppose it depends on how you want to look at it, you know, the way he reveals himself. Not only that, Dr. Medieval reveals himself to be a cyborg who's half human, half Medabots. He can also transport any Medaparts he wants at will. The row battle with him is actually really clever. It's like a combination of having to figure out when to attack, how Medabi and the others should compensate with what Medapart is now using. It's, in my opinion, one of the better row battles in the series. The chick salesman returns, appearing within the tomb that Rintaro, Spike and Salona are in, hilariously enough. He now sells rabbits after selling all of his chicks to the Colonel. I don't know if that's really cruel or just hilariously dark. Probably just hilariously dark. Similodon and Peppercat cease function after receiving too much damage from Dr. Medieval. Where's Rakusho in all of this? Also, how come Rakusho wasn't affected by the strange green rays coming from Medabi, making all Medabots with Beetle-type medals go on a rampage? Phantom Renegade steps in with Archbeetle stating, "Unfortunately for many people, the Grim Reaper turned me away." So apparently the cat was Dr. Medieval's boss all along. You know, the one with the weird visor across its eyes. Okay. The cat then goes and unleashes a new Medabot called Giganko, who is the biggest Medabot in the entire world, who also looks suspiciously like Mega Emperor. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Mega Emperor, but whatever. Anyway, this episode gets an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Episode 26, The Mother of All Row Battles. This episode and the previous episode still hasn't explained how Rakusho wasn't affected by that green aura from before. There's a lot of really funny moments, like Dr. Aki being disappointed by how his personal helicopter has been destroyed, and Medabi doesn't have enough money for flowers or some shit. Also, Mr. Referee wants to referee the row battle between Giganko and Medabi, despite the fact that it's implied that all hell is about to break loose, but he's just an absolute boss who is really dedicated to his job. Medabi, Rakusho and Archbeetle gain the Meta Force and are able to stop Giganko, or maybe not, as he just loses his caterpillar legs. Never thought I'd ever hear myself say that. Giganko lost his caterpillar legs. I guess it's kind of like when Maggie lost her baby legs in that one Halloween episode of The Simpsons. There's a funny moment where Medabi and Ikki fly off to face Giganko, and the rabbit salesman comes back thinking he was selling Ikki a rabbit. Rakusho wishes he had a Medafighter so his spirit was stronger, and Phantom Renegade just wishes he had a strong body so he could rise and walk again. The Select Corps finally arrive to stop Giganko, but not all those other times when the Rubber Robos tried to steal and cause mayhem. I'm guessing the Rubber Robos just aren't that much of a threat for the Select Corps, but they're still criminals. I mean, have you seen the shit they've done in this anime? Ikki and Medabi get the idea to simply remove Giganko's medal, which is what Space Medafighter X did in one of the previous episodes with Mega Emperor. And yeah, it's still just as clever back then. Even, you know, with me just referencing Space Medafighter X doing it. Ikki and Medabi are still technically row battling against Giganko, which is still really funny. And hilariously, they end up being disqualified by Mr. Referee because they tampered with the enemy's Medabot medal, you know. The captain of the Select Corps turns out to be Ikki's dad, and he tells Ikki that the Rubber Robos have all been arrested. Icky and Medabots finally make it back to 3rd place because of their row battle with Sea Slug, who was row battling under his real name. And there you have it, folks. Icky and Medabots are going to the World Row Battling Tournament. A really nice episode, and you know something, I really like this scene where Icky and Medabots are just sat on this like grassy area next to a bridge, and they're having this moment where they're really happy that they were able to save the day, and they've kind of come to terms with the fact that at the time they thought they were still in 4th place, and they were really happy with that because Icky had only been row battling for about a year, and it's a really nice moment, and it's one of those moments where the hero isn't like this really arrogant, almost borderline sociopathic little shit. And Icky's it's like one of his better moments in my opinion, and Medabots as well. This episode gets a 9 out of 10 from me. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is every single episode of the Medabots saga, or Series 1, reviewed. So why don't we go and take a look at the final scores? So we have 8 episodes out of the 26 that have scored a perfect 10. We have 1 episode that scored 9.5, 2 that scored 9, 6 that scored 8.5, 4 that scored 8, 2 that scored 7.5, 2 that scored 7, 0 that scored 6.5, and 1 that scored only 6. The scores of 5.5, 5, 4.5, 4, 3.5, 3, 2.5, 2, 1.5, 1, 0.5, and 0. Well, there weren't any episodes that scored as low as that, so in my opinion, the Medabots saga is a very strong series, and it gets a final score overall of 8.67 out of 10. Might not be a perfect series, but it's definitely a very good one, and it's a very good series that'll help you understand what Medabots is about. A very strong start to the franchise. I'm General Chaos, and I'll see you all later.